Ladies and gentlemen, people of the interwebs, welcome to Saturday Morning Cartooning. Today we are talking about and illustrating or doing a sketch of the Swat Kats. This was always one of my favorite Saturday morning cartoons. It is produced by Hanna-Barbera. One of the I always forget it's a Hanna-Barbera cartoon. When I think Hanna-Barbera, my first thought always goes to Yogi Bear, Scooby-Doo, a lot of those classics. I forget, you forget like, oh yeah, they did some action stuff. And SWAT Kats is as action as it gets. One of my absolute favorite Saturday morning cartoons. If you're unfamiliar with SWAT Kats, it is a cat-based universe where everyone is a human feline, like Goofy, but cats. Everyone's cat-like, the show ran for 2 seasons, created by Christina Tremblay and Yvonne Tremblay. I hope I'm not butchering your last names. You did great work. The show ran from 93 to 95. I know it got a video game. I think there was a couple of comic books too. Basically you have it says there was 2 seasons, right, new 2 seasons, and then a special, which I don't know what the special was. I'll have to look that up. But you had these 2 SWAT agents, and early on they were screwed over by their commander, where basically he put them in a position to fail. They failed, and they crashed a jet, and they had to pay back the city the cost of that jet and the damages to that building. And so they were forced to work as junkmen in like the city junkyard, where Jake and Chance realized that they could take all the pieces of broken jets in the junkyard and make their own super jet. I always liked that concept. I always liked that idea of like, we're just going to build our own thing. We're not going to rely on the city or what. Well, I mean, they're discarded, city jets, but we're going to take these jets or these pieces and build our own jet. I would honestly say it feels very inspired by Top Gun, but also inspired by a lot of classic comic books and the superhero genre. They have, Jake and Chance. Jake and Chance take on secret identities of, was it Razor and T-Bone? Chance becomes T-Bone, Jake becomes Razor. And it's super high in action. For me, this was one of those cartoons that was actually really hard to find and watch when I was growing up. Not every, we didn't have, we had cable, but just because you had cable doesn't mean you got to see the same stuff that everyone got back in the day. You had affiliate networks and Each affiliate network had their own programming director. So just because, Hanna-Barbera is producing this incredibly high quality animation, I think that's what makes people still talk about Swat Kats today, is because the animation is insanely high quality for the time. And and there is a level of maturity to Swat Kats that some Saturday morning cartoons, this is the early 90s, didn't have at that moment. Recurring villains with motivation that you can understand. We're not talking, villains who are just evil for the sake of evil, like Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget. Like, you could kind of understand what some of these villains were trying to get at, and how they were somewhat off the mark. But for me, SWAT Kats was one of those shows where I literally would have to wake up at 5 in the morning, and there was like a Hanna-Barbera block where I'd watch SWAT Kats, Flintstones, and then the Jetsons, and then I'd go back to bed, and then I'd wake up in 2 more hours. So yeah, it was like 5, so 6:30 basically I'd go back to bed, and then around 8 I would wake up for the Marvel Power Hour, and this was my Saturday morning routine for a very long time. When I got to middle school or high school, I think that's when I stopped getting up at 5 a.m. For the earlier stuff, because I just, sleep happens. Still a big fan of sleep. So, but, I want to take the moment and just talk about how beautiful SWAT Kats was, especially for a Hanna-Barbera series. Hanna-Barbera was not known for this heavy quality animation, and eventually they're going to get bought out by, I think, Time Warner. This is clearly before the buyout. So, but one of the best Saturday morning cartoons, SWAT Kats Radical Squadron. If you can get it on DVD or buy it digitally, do so. There's not that many episodes, unfortunately. But they're really well written. You had recurring villains, such as the Metal Cats, Dr. Viper. The Metal Cats were always my favorite. They seemed to show up more often in the episodes that I saw. They were solid villains. Beautifully well written. They're one of the, I think they actually at one point find out about Jake and Chance's secret identities, and there's a scene where they're just robotic heads, and they're tempting another character, like, we'll tell you who they are, and against this character's, it's really well written stuff. I think Faraday, who's their former boss in general, he's the one who ends up destroying the Metal Cats. It was just, incredibly well written. Now, I've seen some of these subplots and storylines done in other cartoons, but or even other books and whatnot. But this was kind of my early exposure to some of these, some of these plot points, especially in Saturday morning cartoons. Because you're talking 93. Okay, we're going to get Batman the Animated Series, I think, that year. But, it was that wasn't the norm. We were still coming off of the high of like the Smurfs and some of the 80s reruns, the Snorks. So it was a different time, but to have complex storylines, have characters, clear-cut motivations, it was a different time in animation. The Past Master I thought was always a great villain. They had some solid villains. They had some, and it was just very well written stuff. It should have gotten more than 2 seasons on all honesty. According to Wikipedia, because that's the level of journalistic integrity I have, Ted Turner wasn't happy with the level of violence in the cartoon, because I guess this was after the Time Warner buyout of Hanna-Barbera, which led to merchandising delays, which eventually led to its cancellation. Which is funny because, honestly, I wouldn't think Ted Turner, knowing what I know about Ted Turner from WCW, I didn't think he was all that hands-on with various, because WCW got away with murder. And I know Ted, didn't really care about the content WCW was producing. He only cared about the ratings. Because, WCW was definitely pushing the envelope at that time with gang wars and gang violence. And so to come down on SWAT Kats, of all things, I feel like maybe somebody else in Ted's... I have a hard time believing Ted Turner would even have an opinion about a Saturday morning cartoon, other than, what's the ratings and what's the merchandising doing, because Ted, that was the way he handled WCW, was he just let other people run his company. So yeah, I don't know. That seems like there's something more there that I'd like to learn more about. It was incredibly well animated. It felt very similar to a lot of anime, and it was definitely cutting edge, and I could definitely see a revival happening, but I don't know if there's enough fan goodwill or interest to bring it back. 13 episodes a season, basically. But yeah, it was just, ahead of its time. One of my favorite cartoons growing up, and an absolute blast to kind of revisit. So it does look like there is a reboot in development, SWAT Kats Revolution. I guess the reboot development started in 2015. but I couldn't find any animation or any current updates. But yeah, I'd be looking forward to seeing what any, if any, kind of modern SWAT Kats we could get. For a show that only did 2 seasons, it is very well loved. It is, again, 26 episodes total. That's, one run of a classic TV show, one season. So, like I said, it is very well loved. The scripts are incredibly well written. The characters are very well developed. It was one of the earlier shows that I saw that had, kind of the sexy cartoon character. The mayor's assistant, Callie Briggs, Mayor Minx. Some of these names are brilliant. Feline Feral. Some of these names are just brilliant. And again, this show was way ahead of its time. The Callie Briggs character, I think, is still shows up in fan art online all the time, especially like in that furry community. This was a show that, again, I would wake up at 5 a.m. as an elementary kid to see. Like, I'm actively in elementary school when this show is airing at 5 a.m. and I am getting up, setting my alarm to get up to watch this show. And I'm sure I realized when it was coming on because of TV Guide, because, back then you couldn't just watch anything you wanted to watch when you wanted to watch it. You had to find it in the TV Guide. So I don't know if anybody else woke up that early to watch SWAT Kats. Again, I would watch SWAT Kats, the Flintstones, which, it was from the 60s, but it was my first viewing of the Flintstones, which, brilliant. I stand by the Flintstones today. Jetsons, I was never that big of a, I would watch the Jetsons, but I didn't care for them the way I cared for the Flintstones. And then I'd go back to bed, and wake up and watch the rest of my Saturday morning cartoons. So, SWAT Kats was always a great way to start a Saturday morning. And yeah, as a elementary school kid who had nothing other than, homework that he should have been doing, or, probably whatever else I wasn't doing, or procrastinating or whatever, SWAT Kats was totally worth waking up at 5 a.m. As an adult, I don't wake up at 5 a.m. I don't. I have told managers that, no, I'm not coming in, because that would mean I'd have to wake up at 5 a.m. to be here at that time and this time. And so I'm not, I have put down my foot and said, no, I'm not doing that as an adult. As a kid, I gleefully woke up at 5 a.m. for the SWAT Kats. This show, I keep saying brilliant, but the animation, the the action, some of the best action scenes of that era. You know, it's not easy to animate a jet and to maintain, you know, that kind of speed and action and you know, dealing with physics at that level. This is high level animation. You know, and there's multiple vehicles, multiple weapons, multiple projectiles. Jake always building new devices and coming up with new ways to handle their various weapons and or various opponents. And then, you know, like Dark Cat is probably the most two-dimensional villain that they have, but Dr. Viper is right out of like a Universal horror film. The Metal Cats are this Bonnie and Clyde sci-fi, you know, noir villain, like, because they're these noir gangsters, but they're, you know, also, you know, a lift or an homage to Metallica. Hey, people of the interwebs, real quick ad break. If you want to check out any of our amazing books, please go to our storefront where you can purchase all of our books, including some without even pictures. Have access directly to our books. Also, a lot of our books are available on Amazon.com, and we just would appreciate the support as well. All books sold directly from the store will be signed. Support your local author. Hello from the Superman comics. You know, everything that this show did just kind of worked. You know, the Mad Cat, jester like Joker kind of villain with superpowers. You know, how are we going to overcome this reality warping sociopath, you know? So like the villains, the threat was real, especially Dr. Viper. You know, the threats, the villains, they were always a real threat. And then on top of it, you know, you have the whole like debate of whether or not the SWAT Kats are needed, because, you know, Mega Cat City has this militarized force already there, and of course their ex-boss, the guy that got them fired for showboating and trying to take credit, is their biggest proponent within the government, within the system. Like, we don't need these SWAT Cats, we can do it on our own, we don't need Batman. So yeah, it was pulling from all these different sources, you know. And the thing is, what I love, and I've said this several times before, one of the things I absolutely love more than anything is theater of the absurd. When you take a concept that is utterly ridiculous and you treat it with 100% respect and dignity and try to treat it as real as possible, you get something like the SWAT Kats, because, you know, cats flying jets is, you know, crime fighting cats flying jets at its core is pretty ridiculous. But the drama's there, the characters are there, you know, this show worked on so many levels. And yeah, I absolutely loved Swat Kats. It was one of my favorites growing up. I didn't have any of the toys. I don't think, I even ever remember seeing any of the toys in the toy store. I do remember seeing the SNES game, and I guess it also had a Sega version as well. But I don't recall even ever playing those games. Even later on in life, I don't think I've gotten to play them with like even an emulator. I should go back and try to play some SWAT Kats and see if it's worth it or if it was fun. Because I know a lot of those games based off of cartoons just don't work. The Tick, I never got past the first level of, and I love the Tick. I never got past the first level of the video game. Maybe the second level where he's fighting on a train, or you were on a bus and they're throwing ninjas at you. That's as far as I ever got with the Tick video game. Yeah, it was just it's brilliant. And what I'm trying to do here with Saturday morning cartooning is shine a light on a ritual that my generation had that no longer exists. Like I said, I wasn't the only kid getting up at 5 a.m. to watch these cartoons. The Saturday morning cartoon ritual was a huge part of not only my childhood, but spanning multiple generations. The Saturday morning cartoon experience. I think it's a shame that it's gone. I don't. You can say the 24-hour Cartoon Networks killed the need for it, but more or less, more importantly, the George W. Bush No Child Left Behind is what killed Saturday morning cartoons, because they changed the parameters of child programming and said that there had to be more educational material in there. And so networks just started running football instead of keeping their Saturday morning cartoon lineup going. It's like, well, we can just make more money airing football than, X-Men or some of these incredibly important cartoons, these touchstones. Again, like I know for a fact I'm not the only one who grew up with SWAT Kats. I know for a fact I'm not the only one who grew up with some of these cartoons. So what I'm trying to do here is shine a light on our old ritual, and B, remember some of those good times, some of those. These were early stories that meant something to us. And again, this sketch that I did with SWAT Kats, I used markers. I'll probably go back to watercolor moving forward. I don't know how I feel like. I'm playing with the different media here. Markers are not my cup of tea. I know there are a lot of artists online who do really well with Copic and different markers, but I think these markers are kind of dried out, and I don't want to pay more money to get another set of markers, because the marker set can be quite expensive, which is ridiculous as a professional artist. Watercolors are cheaper, or gouache is cheaper than markers, so I might just be moving back in that direction. But this was a fun little experiment. as far as the SWAT Kats go. I enjoy these characters. I enjoy revisiting my time with them, and I think there is something special with SWAT Kats. It's, again, 2 seasons. How many cartoons do we just have forgotten about that just fade into existence? Hanna-Barbera was onto something with this. This could have been another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles if given the proper support, given the proper, but it just, wasn't given the proper support from the top. It sounds like reading online that Ted Turner, didn't get it or didn't enjoy the violence, which surprises me because it wasn't nearly as violent as anything on Monday Nitro at the time. Or Nitro didn't exist in 93, did it? Maybe it did? No, 95 I think is Nitro. But either way, Saturday Slam or whatever the Saturday, because it wasn't Saturday main event, that was WWE. Anyway, I'm rambling about pro wrestling. But yeah, it was. This is one of those shows where you would on Monday talk about with your friends, like, did you see SWAT Kats? Did you see? It was a good show. It was one of the, we didn't have water cooler shows in elementary school. We had juice box shows. This is the show you at lunch talk about with, oh my god, did you see this? And the Metal Cats are back, and now they're time traveling and they're in the future, and there are aliens, stealing water. This show just, it went full tilt, full crazy, full bore. It leaned into the absurdity of the concept in a way that most shows would have shied off of. And the buddy the back and forth between Razor and T-Bone is still some of the best dialogue. The tough guy machismo kind of stuff that's razzing your best friend, that stuff really did hold up, because you can tell that it's coming from a place of love and caring, and that these two guys do care about each other. So it's definitely, when trying to develop my Saturday morning art show kind of thing, SWAT Kats was early on, like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to do a SWAT Kats sketch, because of just how much love I have for this show. I only did Jake and Chance, but if I had done something else, I definitely would have done Callie and the Metal Cats, Metallic Cats. I think those are more iconic villains than Dark Cat. But again, Dr. Viper is right out of a Universal horror movie. Brilliant design, brilliant creature designs. You understand right away what his motives were. Very much in the vein of Poison Ivy. If the internet is to believe, they're working on something as far as a sequel series. I don't think we'll ever see it, but I would be interested and seeing what they can do with it. You know, I will say this about SWAT Kats Radical Squadron. As a show, I always forget that they spelled the cats with a K. I mean, it's like the Mortal Kombat, like combat spelled with a K. You know, it's really, it's one of those things that's like, is it a C or is it a K? No, it's K. But yeah, I guess I'm rambling. I hope you enjoy these videos. I hope you enjoy what we're doing here. You know, SWAT Kats Radical Squadron. It does deserve a revival, even if it's just like a comic book series. It in the Hanna-Barbera legacy, you know, I don't rank it as far as like the classics go, but it's definitely up there with their adventure shows. Like, this belongs right up there with Johnny Quest and you know, some of their other action-y adventure stuff. You know, as a Hanna-Barbera guy, I'm a huge fan of Scooby-Doo. That's my jam. But Scooby-Doo is less action adventure and more suspense, horror, mystery. Whereas this is just right from the get-go, action. Character development, action. Backstory piece, action. So yeah, I'm glad that I got to spend a little time revisiting this series, and you know, the character designs are brilliant. It's hard, like, you know, to put things in perspective. You know, it was early 2000s that Warner Brothers Animation just switched over to all vehicles and cars being computer animated. You know, because they don't have to hand animate the jets or like the Batmobile, or that's all digital stuff. You know, they're drawing jet action sequences, which there's no reference for that. There's no, like, you know, seriously, these animators had no real reference for like how to draw a jet banking left. You know, in 94, 93, as it fires a missile. Like, they were just winging it and really nailing it. And so yeah, one of my favorite cartoons of all time. You know, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoy what I'm doing here, like, subscribe. If you really like what I'm doing here, join me on Patreon, where you get to see some of this stuff early. You know, if you really like what I'm doing here, buy one of my books. You know, you can go to my website, link down below, or you can go to Amazon, and you can buy some of my graphic novels or comics, or you know, all that fun jazz. You know, I'd appreciate the support, as I'm a little indie guy. SWAT Kats, absolutely one of my favorites. You know, deep down, these kinds of things are always just floating in my brain, and Flatfoot McGee is definitely an expression of my love for animation, or comes from that. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, and you know, See you next Saturday morning. Well, there you have it. Please like, subscribe. This was one of my favorites. Swat Kats was, always near and dear to my heart. Had some of the best storytelling in all of Saturday morning cartoons. In the comments, what was one of your favorite villains? This show had a lot of villains, and a lot of them were recurring. So, what was one of your favorite recurring villain characters from the show?